नमस्कार, मैं सीए मनमोहन जिंदल, सोशल ऑडिटर, रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर इंस्टीट्यूट इन फाइनेंशियल एसेट्स, working from Mumbai. When we do social audit, the information document required by the social auditor as follows. Number one, the auditor must have access to all documentary evidences collected by the organization relevant to the project and तो जो चीजें ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ने कलेक्ट की हैं, रेलिवेंट है उस प्रोजेक्ट और एक्टिविटी से, उन सब पर ऑडिटर का एक्सेस है फॉर द डॉक्यूमेंट्री एविडेंस. Access to primary source of data on which social impact report is based are crucial. So primary sources of data भी उसके एक्सेस में होना चाहिए. Thus the auditor must have access to secondary data as well as the primary data. So secondary data, this data is readily available through a repository of information available with the organization. तो ये एक ऐसा डाटा है जो उसके रिपोजिटरी में ऑलरेडी अवेलेबल है. The records that are maintained by an organization as a part of their routine project activity and are an example of the secondary data. Data available in the public domain is also a secondary data. जो शेयर होल्डर्स की रिपोर्ट्स हैं, कंपनीज की बैलेंस शीट्स हैं, या कहीं उसने रिपोर्ट जमा की है, या किसी नीति आयोग पर है, या कहीं कंप्लायंस किया है, जो पब्लिक डोमेन में है, दैट इज आल्सो कॉल्ड ए सेकेंडरी डाटा. इफ नीड बी, सोशल ऑडिटर्स कैन ऑब्टेन डाटा फ्रॉम एनी पब्लिक अथॉरिटी अंडर आरटीआई. यदि सोशल ऑडिटर को चाहिए तो वे आरटीआई के द्वारा भी कुछ डाटा की डिमांड कर सकते. The auditor should demand access to relevant secondary data. So the auditor should demand access to relevant secondary data which is material to the project to be audited. Some examples of secondary data are out of school children in a slum and job, amount and value of loans given to women in microfinance program, etc. So these are also a example of secondary data. Monthly, quarterly, 6 monthly reports maintained by the organization. Case study reports, intake sheets of beneficiaries should be produced to the auditor on demand. तो केस स्टडी रिपोर्ट्स वगैरह सब भी ऑडिटर को ऑन डिमांड मिलती. फोटो, documentation, film clipping of events, activities are also important evidence and should be made available to the auditor. Stakeholders are an integral part of the social audit process. The auditor can look into the documentary evidence used, cited in the social impact report, such as a list of farmers with signature is one of the pieces of evidence to ascertain that they were indeed consulted for the social impact consultation. Any discrepancy noted therein can be further scrutinized. So this is a type of secondary data. Now, primary data. Primary data, this is obtained from first-hand sources and needs to be included in the impact. Key stakeholders from organization and beneficiaries should be consulted. तो जब हम इंटरव्यूज करते हैं, क्वेश्चनेयर्स करते हैं, फोकस ग्रुप डिस्कशंस करते हैं, सर्वेज करते हैं, तो these are some examples of primary sources of data. Sources of primary data collected should be maintained in a form that can be retrieved by the auditor during the audit trail. तो उस तरीके से मेंटेन होना चाहिए कि इजी रिट्रीवल हो, जब चाहिए देखने में आ जाए. ऑडिट ट्रेल जब हम चाहें हमें रिट्रीव करना चाहिए. The auditor need to use appropriate techniques and sample size to ensure reliability, accuracy, and validity of information collected to derive evidence. तो जो हम एविडेंस कलेक्ट करते हैं वो रिलायबल होने चाहिए, एक्यूरेट होने चाहिए, वैलिडेट होने चाहिए. Depending on the nature of the social project, a combination of probabilistic sampling method और non-probabilistic sampling methods भी हम यूज कर सकते हैं. Probabilistic sampling method में आता है simple random, systematic, cluster और stratified. जबकि non-probabilistic method में आता है कोटा, judgment, snowball can be used to collecting evidence. अब यहाँ पर ये क्वेश्चन बनता है, यहाँ पर ये क्वेश्चन आता है कि स्नोबॉल कौन सा मेथड है, प्रोबेबिलिस्टिक है, नॉन प्रोबेबिलिस्टिक है, कोटा कौन सा है, सिंपल रैंडम कौन सा है. तो इस टाइप के क्वेश्चन आए हैं. ज्यादातर देखा गया है क्वेश्चन स्नोबॉल पे आया है या सिंपल रैंडम पे आया है. तो इस टाइप या जजमेंटल में दो में ज्यादा आया, स्नोबॉल और सिंपल रैंडम पर ज्यादा आए हैं. स्नोबॉल नॉन प्रोबेबिलिस्टिक है और सिंपल रैंडम प्रोबेबिलिस्टिक है. तो इनको भी थोड़ा सा ध्यान रखेंगे, याद करेंगे तो एक क्वेश्चन आपका पक्का. Evaluation of misstatement is identified during the audit and the evidence for the same. Audit financial statements of the organization, the audit utilization certificates of the. Now, evidence building. हम evidence building कैसे करें? The social auditor should plan and perform a social audit with an attitude of professional skepticism. तो यहाँ पर इसके ऊपर भी एक क्वेश्चन बनता है कि वो किस एटीट्यूड के ऊपर बात करेगा, प्रोफेशनल कॉम्पिटेंसी के ऊपर काम करेगा, प्रोफेशनल अपग्रेडेशन के ऊपर काम करेगा या प्रोफेशनल स्पेक्टिज्म के साथ काम करेगा. तो आंसर प्रोफेशनल स्पेक्टिज्म आएगा. To obtain sufficient appropriate evidence of the implementation of the social program in the field. Following are the points to be considered while building evidence. हमें ध्यान रखना है. When designing and performing procedures, the practitioner would also need to consider the relevance and reliability of the information to be used as evidence if evidence obtained from one source is inconsistent with that obtained from the other. तो इस टाइप का ध्यान रखना है. यदि एक सोर्स से हमें इंफॉर्मेशन मिली दैट इज इनकंसिस्टेंट और दूसरे से इंफॉर्मेशन दैट इज कंसिस्टेंट, तो कौन सी आपको एविडेंस के लिए लेना है, ध्यान रखना है. The social auditor has doubts about the reliability of information to be used as an evidence. तो यदि reliability के ऊपर कोई डाउट है तो उसे यूज नहीं करना है. The social auditor should determine what changes or addition to the procedures are necessary to resolve the matter, should consider the effect of the matter, if any, on other aspects of the. The social auditor should accumulate uncorrected misstatement identified during the engagement other than those that are clearly trivial and determine the effect of misstatement on the assurance. So this statement is very important. इसके ऊपर क्वेश्चन आते हैं भैया. कई बार देखा गया है कि इस लाइन के ऊपर क्वेश्चन है, इसको ट्रू और फॉल्स के तौर पे भी आते हैं और इसको थोड़ा सा मैनेज करके भी आता है. This statement is very important. The social auditor should request from the appropriate party or the parties a written representation. क्या representation दिया जाएगा? That it has provided the social auditor with all information of which the appropriate party or parties is aware that the relevant to the. Number 2. Confirm the measurement or evaluation of the underlying subject matter against the applicable criteria, including that all relevant matters are reflected in the subject matter information. If, in addition to required representation, the social auditor determines that it is necessary to obtain one or more written representation to support other evidence relevant to the subject matter information, the social auditor should request such other representations. So, these representations should be given by the party. When written representations relate to matters that are material to the subject matter information, the social auditor should evaluate their reasonableness and consistency with other evidence obtained, including other representation, whether it is oral or written. consider whether those making the representation can be expected to be well informed on the particular matters. And the date of written representation should be near to the practicable to, but not after the date of the assurance. तो near to the assurance report होनी चाहिए. Description of applicable criteria. The social auditor would need to evaluate whether the subject matter information adequately refers to or describes the applicable criteria. The description of applicable criteria advises intended users of the framework on which the subject matter information is based and is particularly important when there are significant differences between various criteria regarding how particular matter will be treated in the subject matter information. What are the characteristics of audit evidence? अब ऑडिट एविडेंस की क्या कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स होनी चाहिए? Competence signifies the reliability of the audit evidence. कि वह competent है या नहीं. If the social auditor is unable to obtain sufficient characteristic of evidence में competence signifies the reliability of the audit evidence. If the social auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence, a scope limitation exists and the social auditor should express a qualified opinion, conclusion, or disclaim an opinion disconclusion, or withdraw from the engagement where the withdrawal is possible under applicable law or regulation as the. So, जहां पर लिमिटेशन एग्जिस्ट करती है, सफिशिएंट एविडेंस नहीं है, तो वह यहाँ पर या तो क्वालिफाइड ओपिनियन दे या डिस्क्लेम ऑफ एन ओपिनियन करे या विड्रॉ फ्रॉम द एंगेजमेंट कर दे यदि लॉ में परमिटेड है. रेलेवेंस मींस pertinence of information to provide an opinion. The social auditor should evaluate the sufficiency and appropriateness of the evidence obtained in the context of the engagement and, if necessary in the circumstances, attempt to obtain further evidence. यदि उसको कम लग रहे हैं तो further evidence को collect. The social auditor should consider all relevant evidences regardless of whether it appears to corroborate or to contradict the measurement or evaluation of underlying subject matter against the applicable criteria. If the practitioner is unable to obtain necessary further evidence, the social auditor should consider the implications of the social auditor opinion or sufficiency describes whether the information obtained is enough to provide an opinion, judgment and conclusion. So इसके ऊपर क्वेश्चन आ जाता है कि what is sufficiency described. So it is a very important line. The social auditor should form an opinion, a conclusion whether the subject matter information is free from material mistake. In forming an opinion, conclusion, the social auditor should consider the conclusion regarding the sufficiency and appropriateness of evidence obtained and evaluation of whether uncorrected misstatements are material individually or are in aggregate. तो इन बात का सबका ध्यान रखना है. If social auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence, a scope limit exists and the social auditor should express a qualified opinion, conclusion, disclaim an opinion or conclusion, withdraw from the engagement where the withdrawal is possible under the applicable laws, regulation and ये सेम लाइन इससे पहले भी आई थी, वो दूसरे संदर्भ में आई, तो यहाँ पर ऑडिटर को ऐसा करना चाहिए. What are the audit conclusions? Number 1, review the social audit findings and any other appropriate information collected during the audit against the auditor. objectives. Agree on the audit conclusions, taking into account the uncertainty inherent in the audit process. Prepare recommendations if specified by the audit plan and discuss audit follow-up. And so these are the processes of audit conclusion. Now, content of the audit conclusions. So the audit conclusion should address issues such as following: the extent of conformity with the social audit criteria and achievement of audit objectives, coverage of audit scope, fulfillment of audit criteria. If specified by the audit plan, audit conclusions can lead to recommendations for improvement और for future auditing activities. तो इस तरीके से आप रिकमेंड कर सकते हैं. Two audit opinions can be made by the social auditor based on the assessment of social impact as number one, unqualified opinion or unmodified opinion, also known as clean report. तो इसके ऊपर भी क्वेश्चन आ सकता है कि अनक्वालिफाइड ओपिनियन को क्लीन रिपोर्ट हो जाता है, क्वालिफाइड रिपोर्ट बोला जाता है. जैसे this implies that there is no material misstatement and there is sufficient and appropriate audit evidence obtained in reference to evaluation criteria applied for the impact assignment. Number 2, qualified opinion or modified is given whether the auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence or as a whole the impact report is not free from material mismanagement. तब हम क्वालिफाइड ओपिनियन देंगे, मॉडिफाइड ओपिनियन. Now, accounting system and internal control. While performing the social audit, the auditor should obtain the basic understanding of accounting system by obtaining and reading the following documents. इसके ये डॉक्यूमेंट आपको रीड करने हैं, obtain करने. So, number 1, document name क्या है? Accounting manual including SOP. SOP मतलब Standard Operating Procedure. The accounting manual contains the description of accounting system, relevant accounting policies, procedure designed for various processes such as income, expenditure, cash and bank, fixed, etc. So, वो cash बेसिस अपना रहे हैं, accrued बेसिस अपना रहे हैं, कौन सी गाइडलाइंस को फॉलो कर रहे हैं, किसी स्टैंडर्ड को फॉलो कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे हैं, इनकम टैक्स में क्या अफेक्ट आएगा और ऑडिटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स में क्या अफेक्ट आएगा, इन सब चीजों को देखना पड़ता है. Chart of account. The chart of account contains the list of accounts which are there on the accounting system. तो अकाउंटिंग सिस्टम में आप कौन क्या क्या चीजें मेंटेन कर. Post center details. Post center details is the list of code entered into the system to identify cost related to various specific projects. कौन से प्रोजेक्ट की क्या कॉस्ट है, कितना उसको बजट है, कितना उसका टाइम है, ये सब चीजें उसमें आई. डेलीगेशन ऑफ अथॉरिटी मैट्रिक्स. किस आदमी को क्या डेलीगेशन है, किस आदमी के पास क्या अथॉरिटी है. द मैट्रिक्स कंटेन्स द डिटेल्स ऑफ रोल्स and responsibilities of each level to ensure smooth functioning and approval of transaction by authorized person within the organization. किस आदमी पास क्या राइट्स एंड ड्यूटीज हैं, कितना अथॉरिटी है, कौन की मैनेजर पर्सनल है, कौन अकाउंटेंट है, कौन कितना कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है, ये सब चीजें डेलीगेशन ऑफ अथॉरिटी मैट्रिक्स में आ जाती है. IT control manuals. It contains the detail regarding the IT controls in relation to accounting system such as access control, physical and environment security, logical security, backup and recovery, etc. So, किस किस को एक्सेस है, फिजिकल एनवायरनमेंट सिक्योरिटी की क्या स्थितियां हैं, लॉजिकल सिक्योरिटी कितनी है, बैकअप लिया जा रहा है या नहीं लिया जा रहा, ये कोई डाटा लॉस्ट हो जाए तो उसको रिकवर किया जा सकता है या नहीं किया जा सकता. तो ये सब चीजें अकाउंटिंग सिस्टम और इंटरनल कंट्रोल में आ जाती हैं. So this is for today. We shall discuss social related report in the next. Namaskar. Have a good day.